We have quorum, and it's already time to start our second session. Before I start the second session, I would like to reiterate to members that please attend our internal meetings, both before and after the hearing. And because Mr. Michael Teen's request was acceded to during our internal meetings, I don't want to see a repeat of what we saw a moment ago. And I hope all members would attend our pre and post internal meetings. Mr. Teen is not here. Mr. Tan Ka-piu. Thank you, Chairman. I thank MTRCL for their detailed responses. I noticed that in your introductory remarks, opening statement, you have this word, you apologize. On the 5th of May, 2014, Mr. Chin of your corporation said he could not inform the public in good time, and Mr. Walter said that he could not, he failed to give a detailed account, and Mr. Charles talked about his apology because of the late reporting. So when you apologize, Mr. Leung, do you cover all the three MTRCL's representatives' PowerPoints? That is a lack of accountability and late reporting and misjudgment. Do you apologize on their behalf as well?
Thank you, Honourable Member, for that question. As I indicated in my spoken remarks, on behalf of MTR, I'm apologizing that MTR did not, until April of last year, provide government, the Legislative Council, and the public with an updated assessment of the completion date of the Express Rail Link. And as a result, our announcement of the delay in April 2014 understandably caused public concern. That is the extent of our apology, Chairman.
Mr. Tang, you said that you did not provide something until April 2014. So you had the updated assessment regarding completion date. Prior to that, when did you have the updated completion date? When did you know that the completion date would not be August 2015? When did you first have that?
Chairman, once again, we only had information of the delay on the Express Rail Link in April of 2014. As very clearly highlighted in the papers, both the papers in the public domain, the reports from the IPC, the IEP, as well as my written statement, it is because of over-optimism of the project's team with the view that schedules and timetables can be caught up that led ultimately to an announcement in April of the delay. It was the optimism and the assurances that delays can be recovered and therefore the overall program can be met that led to, unfortunately, the late announcement.
Well, I want to confirm one thing. Although you became the acting CEO after the incident, after the event, and Mr. Chow and Mr. Warder only knew about this in April 2014. So is it that Mr. Warder and Mr. T.C. Chow knew about this, knew about the impossibility of the completion in August 2015 at that time?
I really cannot speak on behalf of Mr. J. Warder or Mr. Chu, the former CEO and the former projects director. However, I think in the IBC report, I think it's in the first IBC report, there is a statement that says after their investigation that the executive and the board of MTR only knew about the delay in April 2014. And I think it says that apart from Mr. T.C. Chu, I think that is in the IBC report.
好，交俾議員。
即係話呢一個究竟幾時？
So when did you first when did you first know that? The answer is with the two gentlemen who are not Hong Kong residents who have already left. So after the MTRCL has looked into this, you decide that the two gentlemen, Mr. Warder, Mr. Chow, did not have to shoulder any executive responsibility for that failure?
Chairman, perhaps to answer the honourable member's question, and this is from the IBC, our Independent Board Committee's first report. This is in paragraph 1.48, in which the Independent Board Committee, after their investigation, in their first report, says the CEO and other members of the executive brackets except the projects director, that is referring to the former projects director, were not aware of the delay in the project timetable to 2017 until it was presented to them by the projects director at the meeting on 12 April 2014. I hope that clarifies that situation, Chairman.
梁國權先生，
Mr. Leung, you are the CEO of MTRCL. And I believe you've certainly looked into the whole incident with your team. We're talking about important matters, whether the project can be completed on schedule. And back then, only two people in your corporation know about that. Well, how do you assess the situation?
IBC, and the comment is the CEO and other members of the executive. The CEO at that time, the former CEO, is Mr. J. Warder. So the former CEO and other members of the executive, brackets except the projects director, were not aware of the delay in the project timetable to 2017 until it was presented to them by the former projects director at the meeting on 12 April 2014. I would once again add that and highlight it in my spoken as was written comments, as well as the IBC and the IEP report, and particularly the IBC report. There was an over-optimism on the projects team and members of the projects team that they were able that they would be able to deliver the project on schedule. That over-optimism. That over-optimism, with the benefit of hindsight, was unfounded.
我想問，
Have you conducted any analysis into this strategy of making an announcement only at the very, very last moment, whether it would backfire and lead to further delays and cost overrun?
Chairman, I would say that once again, the Express Rail Link project is a very complex and complicated project, as has been highlighted, and the challenges are well known and have been well highlighted to government and others. After the events of last year, as members are aware, MTR's board appointed the independent board committee to do a complete review and analysis of the events leading to the announcement in April last year. And we have, as members are also aware, followed up on the recommendations of the independent board committee in their report.
我最後咧就想跳。
Let me now refer to 178, paragraph 178 of the statement. And that is the corporation has since 2006 established an XRL project steering group, currently chaired by the operations director. So it was set up some 10 years ago to prepare for the commissioning of the XRL. Can you confirm this? And what are the details of this group?
Currently do have a operations group chaired by our operations director looking at the future operational issues relating to the express rail link. The establishment of that group in 2006 is highlighted in paragraph 178. I would like to seek further confirmation from my colleagues, and perhaps I could revert back to the Secretariat on that.
或者作書面答覆啦，好唔好啊？呢個問題。
Please do this in writing. Mr. Michael Tien, Chairman, the XRL project is now in such a state. I think we have to look back to 2004 to 2009. At that point, it's already the MTRCL, not its predecessor. We have to look at the negotiation that took place between the MTRCL and the government. Mr. Leung, you were the finance director. You attended the board meetings, right? The project director was Russell Black.
The Black retired in early 2010.
係，佢係2010年嘅2月。
Well, it's February 2010. Mr. Black retired in February 2010. In 2009, he was the project director, and you were a board member. In April 2009, your internal assessment was the cost would amount to $98 billion, and there were further discussion. So the cost was reduced from 90 to 60 billion plus. So there were cuts, first of all, to the 80 billion, and then later to 65 billion. I'm given to understand that Mr. Bragg insisted on getting a budget of $80 billion, and it would take 7 years to complete. Can you remember what he said, or you cannot, or you can you confirm this? He was concerned about the lack of investigation, ground investigation. There's nothing you could do at the golf course or under Jordan Road without comprehensive investigation to the experts in the construction sector. They would take on board a risk factor of 1.3 or 1.4.
全世界呢
Also, for the next 5 years, in terms of the cost escalation and inflation, he wasn't as optimistic as the government was. In 2009, all these tentacles, he wasn't confident that the cost could be maintained till 2015. Third, I understand he told the board that you undertook to the government that by 2015 you would be able to complete 3 lines, 1 cross-boundary, 2 within Hong Kong domestically. 2015, you would be able to complete 3. Fourth, I'm not sure whether he said openly. It was heard that he's been working for the MTRC for so long. He never had the experience of any EA. There is so much red tape under the EA. They have to ask the government about so many things. If there is a cost overrun for one project, he cannot transfer the budget between the projects. He insisted that it would be $80 billion, and the time to be taken would be 7 years. Do you remember all that, Mr. Leung?
Thank you, Honourable Member, for that question. It was many years ago, but this is back in 2009.
Only six. It's not
years.
the last.
But Chairman, I would
Millennium,
say
only
that
6 years.
I do not recall these conversations or comments from Mr. Russell Black.
你完全唔記得。
You don't remember at all?
Recall, Chairman, these comments from Mr. Black.
好啊，咁我想請問啦，
Let me put it this way. You accepted the agreement, and you knew that there would be 3 lines to be completed in 2015. As finance director, why didn't you remind the board you have to complete 3 lines? Can you complete them in 5 years?
Thank you for that question, Honourable Member. At that time, and with the successes, the previous successes of MTR's project management and delivery of rail systems over the last 20, 30 years, there was confidence that MTR can deliver those
你有無限
rail
嘅信心，好
systems.
多謝你。
Oh, you're confident? Good, thank you. You realized that there was a lack of site investigation. In 2009, you knew that on Jordan Road there wasn't any site investigation. You had to build a diaphragm wall, and there was a delay of 1 year. And you didn't have any access to the golf course. Since the site investigation was comprehensive, why did you accept this 5-year time frame for completion?
No, thank you for that question.
因為你跟住呢，對唔住。
I beg your pardon, Chairman. You said that it exceeds the norm of the industry. The boring holes would be 14.4 meters apart. There was nothing under the golf course, nothing investigated under Jordan Road. I know a little bit about the railway construction, and you have a map, and you have to have site investigation conducted in an evenly spaced way. Nothing being investigated under the golf course or Jordan Road. You may investigate everything else, but Mr. Leung.
For that question, I think, firstly, perhaps I could just spend a minute just going back and reviewing the process that was used to come up with the program, the original program to complete in 2015. As Chairman and Honourable Members are aware, there was a lot of work done, and that work was also aided by a number of professional third parties in coming up with that program. There was an agreement, and based on the work done, there was an assessment done, which was the schedule, the original program, is doable. It may be tight, but it is a doable program. With regards
主席，
to
我時間有問題。
Chairman, I'm running out of time. Beg your pardon. My question is, do you accept that there was insufficient site investigation? My question is, there was a whole swathe of land that was missed. No investigation. How can you say that this is adequate site investigation? He's setting the scene. He's setting the background. Well, I've only got 10 minutes. Make it brief.
Thank you, Chairman. Once again, there was significant ground investigations done in the West Kowloon site.
How can you say it's significant when the whole golf course was missed? Please enlighten me.
I think,
Lincoln.
Chairman, my understanding is that, and from the records, there was significant ground investigations done, and this ground investigations done, I understand, highlighted in the various reports.
You know
once
how
we
big
took
the golf
possession
course
of the
is?
site.
Do you know how big the golf course is? And you know how wide Jordan Road is?
Yes, Chairman. Once again, there was as I understand from the various reports, there was site investigation done on the golf course
嗱，
once
唔緊要啦，
we
梁
took
生。
possession of the site.
如果你堅持650億，
Well, if you insist on $65 billion, if you think that it is reasonable, you probably forgot the advice of Russell Black. He didn't want to take the rap, and he left. You don't remember why he left the company. Let me put this to you. In the agreement, if it is proved that MTRC has committed negligence in management, do you think that you have to offer compensation? Mr. Leung.
Thank you for that question. Firstly, we take our responsibility very seriously under the entrustment agreement, and our responsibility and liability are well highlighted.
如果證實你哋失，
If it is proved that you have negligence, do you have to make compensation more than the management fees?
Chairman and members, that our liability under the entrustment agreement are well highlighted. In fact, it is well highlighted in the IEP's
嗱，我唔識睇 IEP 唔該，你而家今日話俾我聽啊，係咪封咗？
Can you tell us that whether there has been any cap? If there is proof that you have been negligent, would there be any cap on the fee? Can we trace the $20 billion to the company?
That we have just submitted our latest estimate of the cost to complete and the program to complete to government only just over 2 weeks ago. And as I mentioned, government is still in the process of looking at
好
both
嘅，
the
好啦，好啦
estimated costs。 and
最後一
the
個問
program.
題，阿梁。
My last question, Mr. Leung, do you accept that in terms of management, MTRC has committed negligence, serious negligence?
咁我想請問啦，周大
Mr. T.C. Chiu, before he left, there was an internal email to say that I tried to understand the progress and all the challenges of the XRL, but I failed completely. You accept this? You've seen this email?
Confirmed in the IBC report as well.
嚇，咁呢個係你嘅總監啊嘛。
This is your director. You, if someone who knows this project so well said that he failed, why did you say that there was no negligence?
I cannot speculate as to what was in Mr. T.C. Chu, our previous project director's mind when he wrote that email. Nor do I really have the.
佢當時係咪代表港鐵？
Did he represent MTRC?
Mr. T.C. Chu was the project's director.
咁
of
佢
MTR.
承認完全失敗，點？
He admitted complete failure. Why does the MTRC not accept what he said?
That is one statement taken up. In the context of that statement, I have no further information on. That is just a quote from an email. And there may well be other information in that email. I would say ultimately, as I've said before, that the optimism of the team and that optimism, and Mr. T.C. Chu has admitted that he had been over-optimistic in delivery. That over-optimism is what drove unfortunately, the late announcement of the delay.
係梁生我都
Mr. Leung, I've got a follow-up question. In your statement, page 35, you made a statement. I read in English because I'm reading in English.
Investment cost was revised downwards from the corporation's prior estimates in 2009. 咁佢呢個你話佢會
Well, you said it's been revised downwards. Was it the government that revised it downwards, or was it the MTRC? The entrustment costs.
The movement in the estimates of the entrustment at that time estimates of the entrustment costs are well highlighted in the IEP, the government's independent
我而家係直接問你，我唔係想問 IEP 嘅成員，我係想問你啦。
I'm asking you direct, Mr. Leung, not the IEP. The entrustment cost, it was adjusted downward. Who made the adjustment? Was it the MTRC, or was it the government, or both?
Firstly, I would say that there had been, in terms of the estimates of the entrustment costs, there had been reduction in scope. As members are aware, if there's a reduction in scope, the Honourable Member also talked about some of those reductions. For instance, fewer tunnel boring machines. A reduction in scope will bring about a reduction in costs. So some of these reduction in costs, and once again, well highlighted in the IEP report, has been instigated by MTR when we went through the more detailed assessment of design and the construction and the future construction.
So it
was the MTRC who made the downward adjustment in terms of because of the reduction in the scope of work and also the reduction in the processes and the equipment and so on.
I would say that there are instances when there's a case when MTR reduced the cost estimate because of reduction in scope, as Chairman had rightly said. And the last estimated cost to complete that we have, and also well highlighted in the IEP report, was a number which the IEP report quoted as just under $74 billion. I think this is well highlighted in around page 62 of the IEP report.
Mr. Lee Choi-yan, next, please. Chairman, I've been sitting here all morning. It seems that someone is trying to shirk the responsibility. Mr. Leung said at the beginning that he blamed the problem on the ground condition, whether there was some insufficient site investigation. He didn't admit to that. He blamed it also on the labor shortage. We knew that there was going to be a labor shortage. Why is it that you blame this on the labor shortage when you realize that the problem at that time? The conclusion was, to use his words, there was unfounded optimism. Now my question for Mr. Leung is, for this unfounded optimism, did it appear in both stages? First, in terms of, or at the stage of design, at the stage of budget estimation, did you or were you too optimistic about the completion time being in 2015 at the cost of $60-odd billion? At that stage, were you already overly optimistic? And then I move on to the construction phase. At that particular phase, to use your words, were you overly or too optimistic, Mr. Leung?
Chairman, as highlighted in the various reports, with the schedule, the original schedule to complete for August 2015, and the cost and the estimated cost to complete, the estimated schedule to complete, we have already indicated that at that time we thought they were doable, but they were very tight.
So you think it's doable, but the time is a little bit tight. Do you think that you have underestimated the risks involved? Now you can defend yourself by saying that it was doable at that time. We're not sure about the situation at the time. Did anybody say that the risks would be considerable and that the time was really too tight? And why did you accept? It was so tight, why did you accept it?
Mr. Leung?
Once again, MTR as project manager for the Express Rail Link, as a project manager, we, with the assistance and the benefit of help from third parties right from the beginning in terms of looking at the schedule, the timetable to complete, as well as the cost to complete. MTR's project manager, we took the advice of these third parties, these independent third parties, in their assessments. And based on that advice, we came up with that schedule to complete the estimated timetable of completion in August of 2015. And once again, as highlighted in the various reports, it was a timetable that MTR felt was achievable, but it was a tight timetable.
Are you saying that the third parties misled you?
that I refer to are also third-party experts that have worked with MTR and our MTR projects team in coming up with these estimates, and in particular the program to complete estimate. Working with these experts, the conclusion that we reach at MTR is that the estimated schedule to complete, which originally was in August of 2015, is in a schedule that is achievable but is tight.
好啦，咁你又即係好啦，咁。
All right. So let's say that you thought that you could comply with that schedule. So, and then turning to the construction phase, your project's director was over-optimistic concerning the schedule, and he was not aware of the risks of not able to deliver by August 2015?
As I have mentioned, Chairman and Honourable Member, the team was throughout the after the signing of the entrustment agreement and throughout the express rail link construction, and even now works very hard to mitigate risk as well as mitigate delays when they occur. As I had also mentioned in my spoken remarks, in the early stages and even today, there have been a number of successes with these so-called delay recovery measures. These delay recovery measures are implemented to mitigate or to reduce the delays encountered. With these complex and complicated projects, of course, there will always be circumstances which could lead to delays. The over-optimism that I was referring to is the over-optimism partially due to the success, I believe, of the initial successes with the delay recovery measures. The over-optimism, therefore, was that the delays subsequently identified would be able to be recovered by other delay recovery measures or resequencing of works. The project team works extremely hard to keep the overall schedule as in accordance with the timetable.
咁但係即係如果你咁講嘅話，即係會。
If that's the case, the unfounded over-optimism is a lack of professionalism. It's a result of a lack of professionalism on the part of the project team. They should not, because of early successes of catching up, adopted such an attitude. But from the reports, what we can see are delays only. So I don't quite get the point of Mr. Leung that there were early successes. Now we have a delay, overall speaking. During the construction phase, did the team fail to properly assess the risk of delay? Were they negligent?
As members are aware, currently many infrastructure projects, civil works and building works are facing delays and cost overrun, not just the express rail link. These challenges are, some of these challenges are challenges which is common across the whole construction industry. With regards to the overall process, once again, as members are aware, the process that we use is a process that has been reviewed by a number of experts, and the experts have given their opinions on our processes, and those opinions generally are words like very robust. The process that we use have continued to be audited by not just third parties, but including the government's M&V consultants, but also by ourselves. And implementing that process, we have highly professional colleagues. And these colleagues are the compliments from both the IBC and the IEP on the abilities as well as the professionalism of these colleagues. It is with that professionalism and that ability that these colleagues work very hard, day in, day out, to try to recover delays when they occur. These delays, many of them, may not be foreseeable at the time of the inception of the project.
即係我覺得成個答覆係自相矛盾，即係佢講完晒之後咧。
Well, I think there was no optimism. They are not to blame. The experts agree that they worked very diligently. I think the statement from him, from Mr. Leung, is self-contradictory. It seems that the optimism was founded from what we've heard. Why do you say it's unfounded? Because from what we've heard, the process was not such that it was over-optimism.
A very professional team with significant expertise and significant experience. The project team, as they should, are always looking for solutions to mitigate problems, mitigate delays, particularly when those delays appear. The project team, in their professionalism, are always looking for those solutions. The optimism and the over-optimism that I was referring to is that with the success, the early successes of a number of those delayed recovery measures, that then led to the team believing that other measures could be implemented which will catch up with the original schedule. Unfortunately, that was not the case, Chairman.
Number of factual questions to follow up, and then I have a couple more general questions to ask you. First of all, referring to your written statement, point number 69, where you said where progress of work has been delayed, the corporation will consider mitigation measures to recover the delay under your internal procedures approved by the corporation's project control group is necessary before any delay, mitigation or recovery measures can proceed. The corporations will also share the more significant proposed measure with the Railroad Development Office and the Highways Department before they can be approved. Actually, my question is, when you do that, when you are going to propose some of these measures, do you have to get the approvals from these government departments before you proceed, or it's just a consultative thing that you have to provide certain more significant some information about the more significant measures with these RDO and the Highways Department? Mm-hmm. And do you share also the cost implication with these departments?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chairman. The honourable member is absolutely right. There are obviously very regular reports to government and to the M&V consultant, Jacobs. With regards to delay recovery measures, these delay recovery measures are ultimately approved at our project control group, PCG, where government officials are invited, particularly where they pertain to the service concession projects like the Express Rail Link. That approval, or prior to that approval, there are significant detailed papers which are available to all parties in that meeting. And that paper would also include the financial aspects of any delay recovery measures.
Okay, so you're saying that all the information about these measures and the cost implications and so on are shared with the government representatives on the PCG?
That is my understanding, Chairman. Yes, that the same information is given to government as well as the other MTR representatives at the PCG meeting.
Okay. My next question is on point number 72. You listed a number of measures. About the delay recovery measures. You listed a number of factors, or you said in your words, these measures took a variety of forms, including, as of April 2014, A to G, that would be 7. 7 different possible forms, including things such as use of additional plant and labor resources, plant modifications, blah, blah, blah. Now, my question is, can you provide more detailed information, maybe follow-up information to us in written form about the percentage and actual cost breakdown of these different factors?
Chairman, some of these factors are going to have, when as the honourable member is asking for dollars and costs, there may be commercial sensitivity because it pertains to individual construction contracts. Chairman, with your indulgence, if I may, I would like to consult with my projects team and then revert back to the Secretariat.
Okay.
Okay, but what about possibly a breakdown of the total or the percentage of, additional labor resources would take, I don't know, 10%, 20% or something like that, indicative breakdown for us without the actual numbers even if?
Chairman, I would need to consult with our projects team and revert back to the Secretariat, if I may, on that.
如果有嘅話，你可以提供嘅書面嘅答覆好嗎？
Please do so in writing if you can.
Pt2, where you refer to a number of these H-shaped piles at the Lam Cheung station that the contractor adopted a particular method and in your words, these piles appear to have been deformed when driven into the ground some years ago. And there was no expectation of such piles being so deformed. It sounded like this is something way beyond your expectation. Now, who would be responsible for something like this? Did you make any claims to the contractor for this particular situation happening in terms of damages or reworks and so on?
Chairman, as the honourable member noted in paragraph 74 with regards to contract 802, these H piles were driven into the ground not by any of our contractors. They had been there for some years beforehand, and we obviously have to come up with delay recovery measures and remedial measures to remove them as expeditiously as possible.
So they were piles that were from a previous project or the previous construction of the Lam Cheung station many years ago?
That's correct.
Okay. Finally, again, I want to follow up on some of the questions that other members have also looked at, particularly your opening statement when you referred many times to the fact that you believe the corporation has been too optimistic or in some other parts of your statement, you referred to unfounded optimism and so on. But I have to think that for all the professionals that are driving this project, optimism is a judgment that they make, and for judgment made by these professionals, I have to think that some degree of responsibility for the professionals. They must bear some significant degree of responsibility when they make that overly optimistic judgment. Now, you also referred in your opening statements to and in your written statement to a number of challenges you mentioned today about shortage of labor, utility diversions, and a lot of engineering problems. And you also said that you are undertaking one of the largest and deepest excavations ever in Hong Kong. Now, if this is such an unusual and difficult project, I believe professionals would probably be expected not to be so overly optimistic, because obviously if this is one of the hardest excavation ever done in Hong Kong, it must be something that is quite difficult to do, and you wouldn't expect a professional to act in an overly optimistic way. So do you believe that as a corporation and for the professionals responsible in the project, that they actually do have to take a significant share of responsibility for making that sort of judgment in light of these difficult circumstances?
No, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think firstly I would stress again that both the IBC and I think even the IEP report commented and complimented on the professionalism of the project's team and all members of the project's team in coming up with solutions to recover delays and to complete the project in the most cost-effective manner. I think secondly, there has been, as I had mentioned in both my written and verbal statements, there has been successes with a number of the so-called delay recovery measures and the resequencing of works. Those successes led to, I would assume, the optimism.
Mr. Leung, the question is not so much about the success or otherwise of the DRM. The question was whether there was any dereliction of duty. You realize how difficult the project was going to be, and was there any professional misjudgment?
Find that, yeah. I know that the professional teams and the management must have great knowledge about undertaking such a project and also coming up with the best possible DRMs to try to mitigate the situation. But sometimes, the judgment in the end, you have to make the judgment to say, okay, this is unrealistic, and I can't finish the job in this period of time, or DRMs may be unrealistic. But apparently, this open optimism carry on for an extended or unreasonably long time. So I'm saying that particular judgment part of it, do you believe that there is a sort of level of professional responsibility that needs to be borne by the team?
Chairman, and I thank you. I thank the honourable member for the recognition that the team is highly professional and have done
in the knowledge,
the acknowledgement. The team is highly professional and have done their utmost in recovering delays. The IBC report, in fact, the first IBC report, which was published last year, has gone into quite a bit of details with regards to the events as well as their comments on those events and the performance of individuals involved in the Express Rail Link. There's not really much more that I can add to what is already in the IBC Report 1, and that IBC Report 1 is in the public domain.
Okay, Chairman, one final short question. Knowing that, Mr. Leung, you became the CEO of the company in August of 2014, looking back at the whole development, do you believe that if you were the CEO before you actually undertook this position, anything that you would have done differently if you were the CEO all throughout the period of time, and you could make the judgment and decision on some of these things that probably decisions were made before you became the CEO?
No, thank you for that question. Just to supplement, I became acting CEO in August of 2014.
Right.
I was only appointed CEO in March of this year. It's a theoretical question. I think at this point, moving forward, our aim, and our objective is the same as government's objective, is to deliver the project as quickly as possible and in the most cost-effective manner, Chairman and Honourable Member. And in doing so, we have implemented a number of the measures recommended by the IBC experts. Those measures pertain to the monitoring and reporting of the project, and we are working diligently to deliver the project as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Frankie Yik. Chairman, thank you. Just a moment ago, Mr. Lee Chek-yan questioned the CEO in relation to the lack of labour. He said that at the very beginning of the project you should have some knowledge about this. I'm glad to hear that as a unionist, Mr. Lee admitted that there was a labor shortage. I am concerned that when E&M works have to be undertaken, I'm concerned that you will not be able to get the right level of labor. When you apply for a supplementary labor scheme, you should seek the help of Mr. Lee Chuk-yen to show that there is indeed a labor shortage in Hong Kong. Here in this committee, we have to put it to the MTRC as to whether there has been any deliberate cover-up in the project. In November 2013, I remember together with Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, we said that because of labor shortage, there might be a possibility of the XRL being delayed. Now, the MTR representative said that there shouldn't be no problem. They should be able to get on with the project on time. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng highly commended the MTRC representative. Today, in your statement, Mr. CEO, you emphasized that the labor shortage had a bearing on the project. Now, my question is, has there been any cover-up? Let me get all my questions in first. Mr. Leung, in answer to Dr. Lo Wai Kwok's question, you said that you had communicated with the government about the progress, and you also had the documents. The consultant told you that the delays were getting more serious. So in your statement, paragraph 122I, the then Chief Executive Officer and other members of the Executive Committee were not aware of the delay in the project timetable to 2017 until it was presented to them by the former project director on 12th of April 2014. So in this context, how should we interpret your words? Is it the case that the Executive Committee knew nothing about it? You told us a moment ago that you would take it very seriously. So on the first point and on the second point that I mentioned, if you put them together, people get the perception that the Executive Committee knew nothing about anything. Or was it the case that there was a cover-up? Mr. Leung.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for that question. I would stress again that at no time was there any thought towards withholding any information from government or from LegCo. There was never any thought or any cover-up. There was never that. To answer the honourable member's question, the board, the executive committee, and the board were privy to information on the Express Rail Link, like the other projects of MTR, and follow those projects, including the Express Rail Link, closely. However, and as I've mentioned a number of times before, the over-optimism of the projects team, led the executive committee, and the responses from the project's director led the executive committee and the board to believe that the timetable for completion could still be met. So although the executive committee and the board were following the progress of this project closely, it was the over-optimism when asking a professional, an over-optimism by that professional when asking that professional whether timetable and schedules can be met, and the response was always to the positive until April 2014. So therefore, up to April 2014, despite the fact that many of the executive committee and board members were paying close attention to this, it was the over-optimism that of individuals that led the executive committee and board to believe that the 2014 schedules, that the 2015 schedule can still be met. Secondly, I would thank the honourable member for the advice with regards to the importation of labour. We would take the honourable member's advice.
好啊，主席，我有第二個問題嘅。
My second question, Chairman, regarding the reasons for the delays. In your submission, Mr. Leung, you mentioned the lack of time for the front-end work, and this is not sufficient by international standard. And also there is a challenging timetable, 2015. Mr. Michael Tin also said that your internal assessment suggested that it shouldn't be so short. The third question was also alluded to by Mr. Michael Tin. You had the third-party assistance. The cost should not be so low, and eventually you accepted the EA2 from the government. And as you said a few moments ago, because of the reduction in scope, you ended up with a figure of $65 billion. My question is, you conducted internal assessment. What is surprising with regard to this agreement is that should there be cost overruns, not caused by you, then it would be the government who will bear the excessive cost. And there is no guarantee regarding the completion date. I hardly ever do I hear any terms like this in government agreements. So I am surprised that probably you should have told the administration that the time was too tight, the cost, the budget was too small. Or is it the case that you made representation with the administration and the government didn't accept it, and eventually you accepted this agreement and you wouldn't be held liable?
Thank you, Honourable Member, for that question. Once again, MTR is a project manager in the Express Rail Link project, and the terms of the entrustment agreement, as I understand it, are perhaps not dissimilar to the terms of other types of project management agreements. Our responsibility and our liabilities are well highlighted in the IEP report with regards to our responsibility and liabilities in the entrustment agreement. I would add that I would further add that as highlighted in the IEP and the other reports, MTR has significant incentive to deliver the project in accordance with the estimated timetable and the estimated budget. And that, of course, is with regards to, firstly, the maintenance of our reputation. This was highlighted in the report. As well as, secondly, government were going to invite MTR to operate the Express Rail Link. So there was incentive for MTR to perform very diligently, which we have in the entrustment agreement. I would thirdly add that after the entrustment agreement was entered into in 2010, and after all the big contracts, the tenders went out and the contracts were signed with the subcontractors, and as members are aware, there are 42 of such large contracts. The amounts returned from those contractors were quite a bit less in dollar amount than the original estimate within the cost to complete. And as a result, as highlighted in the IEP report, in fact, our contingency increase as a result of those tenders coming back.
I have no further question. Mr. Chan Kam Lam. Chairman, I want to ask some follow-up questions and seek additional information. In the EA2, the MTRCL's responsibility is to manage the project professionally, and it's also responsible for procurement and other responsibilities. Mr. Leung, you are saying today that the project is complicated. That's why in the EA2 there's no mention of the completion date, unlike the EA1, where we have a specific completion date. You have referred to many factors leading to the delay. labor shortage, ground conditions, bedrocks, resumption of land at Choyun-Jun, and the time taken to do it. What did you do to address those problems? For example, labor shortage. I don't think you only realized that in April 2014. You must have realized that before that date. What did you do to meet your demand on labor? When you discovered engineering difficulties, what did you do? And I'm talking about what you did before April 2014. Well, I know what you did after April 2014 because the information is in the statement. So 2 questions. Mr. Leung.
No, thank you for that question, Honourable Member. In light of the labour shortage, MTR implemented a number of measures. In fact, we did quite a lot to try to reduce the impact of such labour shortage. For instance, since 2011, we have organized 3 job fairs for the construction industry, which drew a total of 15,000 visitors with over 12,300 job applications received. Secondly, we've also done a lot to work with the construction industry and the various associations to attract more people into the industry by encouraging further participation in the construction industry. We have, in addition to that, implemented a number of measures actually on site. We provide life insurance for our construction workers. We also, for instance, provide some health checkups, so heart checkups for workers who would like to benefit from that. So we do a lot of work to both encourage more people to join the industry, as well as to ensure that workers are satisfied and happy working on our construction site. In addition to that, we have a number of times seek to import labor through the supplemental labor scheme. Unfortunately, in many cases, this importation has taken much longer than had been anticipated. With regards to the member's second question on what MTR did when engineering challenges and construction challenges arose, as highlighted in my written statements, when these challenges arise, the team would do their utmost to mitigate these challenges and delays by implementing delay recovery measures. The delay recovery measures, a number of these measures have already been highlighted in my written comments. One example that I can give as a delay recovery measure was with regards to a contract where site access was late. That contract was to build tunnels and the stabling areas around Choyun-Jun. Because of late site access, as one of the delay recovery measures, we, with the consent of government, because of course all these delay recovery measures went through the project control group, an extra tunnel boring machine was procured to catch up with the delay because of the late site access.
主席，梁生只係講到咧，佢喺勞工嗰方面咧就。
According to Mr. Leung, they provide some welfare, some benefits to attract more workers to work for the project, and also they did try to recruit workers through the supplementary labor importation scheme. after all these were done, were you able to meet your demand for labor? And what else did you do if the demand could not be met? I think they were all known, so they shouldn't be regarded as factors leading to the delays. You did all those things. To what extent was your demand for labor met? And if it was not fully met, what else did you do? And also in your liaison and communication with the government, you must have shared the information on those DRM that you undertook. You have undertaken to the government. What else did you do?
Honourable Member for that question. The shortage of labour has been and remains a challenge and a significant challenge for this project. As was reported in May of last year, and this is the paper that was given to LegCo, between January 2013 to April 2014, so that is approximately a 16-month period, there was on average a shortage of labour of 20% in particularly our civil works. And there was a number quoted here. The monthly average that was achieved in terms of labour was 4,894 against a planned of 6,135. That shortage of labour has continued. As reported in the Rail Subcommittee at the early part of July, only less than 2 weeks ago, my projects colleague has also commented that this shortage has continued even today. And the shortage is of a magnitude, percent-wise, not so different from that 20%.
主席，嗰個勞工短缺。
Chairman, labor shortage is a long-term or was a long-term phenomenon. Who's to blame? You as the manager or the government?
Our contractors and subcontractors obviously do their utmost to secure labour, and of course this shortage of labour, as members well recognise, is an issue, is a problem across the whole industry in Hong Kong. With regards to responsibility between various parties, I would say at this time, Chairman, that because responsibility also ties in with claims and so forth from contractors. So at this time, given the commercial sensitivity of discussions on claims of contractors, I'm not in a position to disclose any more with regards to that.
I'm not talking about claims. I'm talking about the management responsibility. MTRCL has been stressing that they have this PIMS in managing the projects. We have been given to understand that under PIMS, all projects will be taken care of. And now we have all these problems. It seems that they are not something that can be addressed by your system. Mr. Leung, as you represent the MTRCL, your understanding of the EA seem to be different from that of the government. According to the document given to us by the Secretary, it's said that if there's any omission or wrongdoing on the part of the MTRCL, the MTRCL would be held responsible to some extent under the EA. And today you are saying that this is caused by the fact that it's a complex project and there are some other reasons or factors. To the general public, it seems that you are trying to shirk a responsibility.
As I mentioned, the Express Rail Link is an extremely complex project. As members are aware, the first all-underground high-speed rail system with a station at West Kowloon, the so-called West Kowloon terminus, of 380,000 square meters, all which is underground.
梁生呢問呢啲我哋都知道，或者你直接答陳議員嘅問題啦。
No, thank you, Chairman.
We all know that. Please be brief.
Members' concerns on this matter. With regards to responsibility, this is a matter which is inappropriate for us to discuss right now because of the various commercial aspects. There's government ourselves and contractors involved in this whole project. So with regards to responsibility, this is something that and particularly with regards to responsibility between ourselves and our contractors, this is something which has a commercial sensitivity to it.
For
the second round, we have Mr. Michael Tin. Your follow-up questions, Chairman? I have 3 questions for Mr. Leung. 1, the canopy at the West Kowloon terminus involving Gammon and another partner. Have you reached an agreement with them on the amount to be compensated? Or is it just your internal estimation about this cost of $13.1 billion?
As the Honourable Member rightly highlighted, the contractor for 810A, which is a part of the West Kowloon terminus structure, is a joint venture between Layton's and Gammon. Once again, because of commercial sensitivity in the discussions with these contractors, these and other contractors, I'm not in a position to give any more information.
I'm not talking about how much you have to pay. I'm talking about whether an agreement has been reached or not. It's not commercially sensitive. Many people have asked me, can we trust this figure of $85.3 billion? I have to ask this question on their behalf. Have you reached an agreement with them?
As I mentioned, the project currently is 70% complete. And with the estimate that we gave to government, which we only gave them 2 weeks ago, and government has indicated that they would take time to review those estimates of both cost and timetable.
Again, this is not a relevant answer. I just want to know whether an agreement has been reached, or is the figure just an internal estimation?
A question on whether the appropriateness of the estimates. I think we have just given our estimates to government. They will be undertaking their review. They will be, I'm sure, asking their questions on those estimates.
Okay. A second question.
Well, you said that by the middle part of next year, with no money coming in, some of the contractors will not be able to stay afloat. How confident are you that before the middle part of next year you will be able to reach an agreement with the government as to how to share the $20 billion overruns? Mr. Tian, let me put this to you. How is your question relevant to the scope of our inquiry? Well, the relevance is we don't really want the responsibilities being shifted around. we don't want the XRL to fall by the wayside. I think this is relevant, isn't it? I think this has go beyond the scope. But can you put another question? Fine, Chairman. Let me put it this way. Now, for the co-location of the boundary crossing facilities, if this is not achievable, will we have the system commissioned? Well, what is the relevance of your question? What the statement refers to the co-location of the boundary crossing facilities. Can you be more specific about the points? Well, there is a mention of the co-location of the facilities. I can pick up on this point, can I? My question is, if in September 2018, the joint immigration facilities are still no nearer a solution, and if you want to start or commission the system, then there will be separate immigration system. We're going to have the facilities in Kowloon Station. What about the other side?
As members are aware, in the West Kowloon terminus, we have allowed space and room.
對唔住，如果要實施兩地兩
If we have to have separate immigration facilities, and you have to commission the system, you have the boundary control facilities on the other side. Where will it be?
Manager to construct the express rail link, and as project manager, there's been space allowed room allowed in the West Kowloon terminus.
內地有冇呢？內地有冇
What about across the boundary in the mainland? Any
Kowloon terminus for the construction of
內地有冇站呢？
What about in the mainland?
With regards to CIQ, Chairman, is an issue for government. We will, of course, support them in whatever ways are necessary.
好，唔該，胡志偉議員第二輪。
Thank you. Mr. Wuchiwai, second round, 5 minutes. Chairman, the board and the government would receive reports regarding project delays. My question is for the board report. For the board, would the board get information about the costs of the project? Will the board be kept informed of the latest figures regarding the costs? Will the information be submitted to the board and the government as part of the process of monitoring the project? Mr. Lau.
As I mentioned, the Executive Committee and the Board of MTR are given information with regards to the express rail link. I would further say that, particularly since 2014, we've also implemented a number of recommendations from our IBC experts with regards to reporting and as well as monitoring. And those measures to improve our existing reporting and monitoring mechanisms have been put into place.
Does it mean that before April 2014, in the report to the board, there was no mention of any variation in the costs? Mr. Leung.
And say that at the Executive Committee and at the Executive Committee, there is a regular reporting of the costs of the Express Rail Link and other projects. And in fact, this is highlighted in the independent reports as well. Up until April of 2014, that reporting was showing still an amount of contingency for the project.
Well, are you saying that the cost variations, the government is aware of them, the board is aware of them, there wasn't any sudden cost overrun sprung on them?
The information that I have at hand shows that up until April of 2014, there was still an amount of contingency in the Express Rail Link budget.
Well, Chairman, will the MTRC tell us before April 2014, as Mr. Leung said, there was enough contingency in the budget. After 2014 through to 2015, there is a big change to the figure. What factor caused these changes?
As we mentioned in our paper to LegCo at the end of June, there were two key factors that two key amongst a number of factors that led to the increase in costs. One of those factors is what we call prolongation, which is the extension of time. At the end, back in April of 2014, the Express Rail Link was still scheduled to complete on time. Prolongation and extension of time increases the cost of a project, and with that prolongation, with that extension of time, that was one of the factors. That leads to the.
Does it mean that we have been reading the report? It suggested that the delay would be more than a year, and according to the record, there wasn't any indication of cost increase.
I mentioned up to April 2014, as highlighted in the independent reports, there was still a contingency in the overall project assessment. And once again, subsequent to April 2014, with the prolongation of the project now into the third quarter of 2018, and related to that, the increase in construction costs, particularly labor and material, that has all led to the increase in estimated cost for the project.
So in 2014, after August, all these factors came in.
As highlighted,
Well, you're repeating yourself. Let me get in one more point. The contractors, the joint venture Gammon Leighton A10A, A11B, Gammon Leighton joint venture. This kind of combination doesn't mean that you have two separate contracts, and between them, because of the site transfer problems, you have two different companies, but because of the site coordination and delays, that will become the basis for claims of compensation.
As the member highlighted, there are different contractors for different contracts. Those two contracts that the honourable member mentioned are two separate contracts. I do not have details of those contracts.
Chairman, I'd like to see clarification here. When the contractor comes under Gammon Leighton joint venture or Leighton Gammon joint venture, they are the same companies, but are we talking about two different companies? And there may be problems with the site transfers between site A and site B, and is this one of the reasons why the joint venture can make claims for delays?
That 810A and 811B are two separate contracts. Although the joint venture contractors may be the same company, but then it could well be that there are different members of that different company would lead a particular consortium. These are separate contracts.
Has the MTRC negotiated with these companies since we have two joint contracts, A and B? Will you discuss with them to make it become one single contract?
Chairman, I do not have any knowledge of that procurement. That procurement would have taken place, the procurement of those contracts would have taken place back in 2010 or 2011.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leung, for being with us today to assist the Select Committee. If necessary, you will be invited back for further attendance. Thank you very much for coming. Members, will you please proceed to conference room number 4 for the meeting in camera. Thank you.